What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time in Matthew Sponauer and Theo Ash. We have a great episode planned for you all today. We're going to talk about some of the NBA masterclasses that have been put on recently by guys like Donovan Mitchell and Luka and Giannis. It's been an absolute crazy stretch that we've had. But before we get into all that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today? Theo, I'm glad to see that you're back home safe and sound. I know you've been all over the place.
I've been all over the place. I've been sliding down hills in the snow, navigating blizzards in my car, getting stuck. It's been crazy here in Flagstaff over the last couple of days, but it's not snowing today. I drove to the Y. I played basketball by myself because there was no one else there because everyone else is working. But I have a job as a podcaster, so I'm basically unemployed. And I was just working on my post game at the Y earlier today, and I feel like I could drop nothing. I don't feel like I could 71. Drop 50. No, I don't feel like to be honest, I don't feel like I could drop 71 in any league anywhere at the moment. Maybe off the bench I could have a 10 rebound game, but I don't think I'm dropping 70 anytime soon. So, but if you need someone on the low block, I'm your guy.
Valid. Matt, how are you doing?
Doing all right. Pretty regular day. Nothing to report.
I always think of the meme of you, nothing to smile about.
Have you found
just a normal day, Blaiden?
Have you found any beauty in the mundane things today?
Nope. No beauty today at all. Like I don't know. Incredibly mundane day. I've just been trying to learn route concepts for the NFL. So I've been watching a bunch of videos on that.
Fair enough. What's your favorite route concept so far?
Texas, maybe. I'm not that far through, but
okay.
Those also are broken in Madden, so maybe that's why.
Those are nice.
Yeah.
I'm a big Smash concept fan right now because they're easy to identify. You just got the little hitch and then the corner up top, and when you hit the corner on those, like the little hole shot in the cover two, it's the prettiest play there is when you can hit that corner and Smash.
Matt's favorite play to run in Madden is Smash. It's Smash and like fullback dive.
Fullback dive rules.
Fullback dive does rule. Smash is also just particularly good. Like sometimes I don't even run the actual Smash concept, but that play with the tight end out on the post, I mean, you can almost always read whether or not the linebacker is going to be there for that. And then you can run a slant and they've got that Y just going up the seam, and it's good play.
That's not Smash anymore, no. But
I mean, it's still Smash. It's just the one side of that concept. A lot of times you can
right.
the slant into, or the hitch into a slant and kind of run it differently.
I think it was Madden. I can't remember what Madden it was, but me and my friend would run fullback dive the entire game. It's all we would do. We do coaching adjustments. We would take the holding penalties at times, but we'd turn blocking on aggressive and just fullback dive on online opponents the entire game.
Good Lord.
It was awesome. We'd get so many people to force quit because they'd just stack the box, but we could still pick up like 3. We went for it on every 4th down, and it was always like 4th and 2 or 4th and 1. And like we'd get it every time. It was awesome. Fullback dive, incredibly underrated Madden play. Establishing the run, underrated thing to do.
Establishing the run in the most
How many times do you think how many times, like Blaiden doesn't know any, if you've ever played Madden with Blaiden, you know he doesn't believe in establishing the run. But
I established the run. It's just an inside zone.
I've never seen it. Establish the run.
I've never seen it.
You're one of these kids nowadays. It reminds me of the kids I saw at the Hall of Fame one time. Their friend ran on first down, and they're like, "What are you doing? Why would you run there?" It's like, what? And I almost went over and said something.
You got to stay ahead of you have to stay ahead of schedule there, boys.
Your win percentage goes up to 95% if you run the ball 40 times, fellas. So get on the ground and get going.
You grabbed him by the collar and you dragged him over to the Franco Harris bust, and you said, What would he say to you right now? I dragged him over to the Walter Payton bust. He didn't
talk to their parents. Hey, just to let you know, your kid.
He doesn't respect the game. Why is he here?
He doesn't respect the game.
In the hallowed grounds of Canton, Ohio, you question running
respect the trenches.
First down. Oh my God! Why are they playing Madden? Can you just play Madden at the Hall of Fame? Is there just
they have a little setup there,
just for the bored kids. You don't want to look at all the gloves and jerseys.
The one of the 100
Hall of Fame is the Hall of Fame is pretty sweet.
And you'd rather play Madden?
There's Madden at home. There's Madden at home.
There is Madden at home.
Go study your Packers history. Go look at all the Packers in the Hall of Fame.
Look at all the Browns in the Hall of Fame.
Your assignment, the Browns wing has got to be in the bathroom or something, one of the stalls.
Yeah.
It's the Browns wing of the Hall of Fame. Bang. No. Yes. We got them.
Actually, I like the big board they have of like every team's record every year. I love looking at like the old teams every time and all that stuff. It's pretty, they've got good stuff there. Hall of Fame's sweet.
Yeah. It's sick. But we're not here to talk about football today. We're here to talk about basketball. And been a lot of crazy performances going on, especially with my Cleveland Cavaliers. Donovan Mitchell dropped 71, an absolute ludicrous performance. And it was like the most efficient 70-point game ever.
Nothing Mickey Mouse about that one, man. That was a crazy one. I didn't watch the game in real time, but going back and watching all the buckets that he had, the NBA posted like the compilation of every point he scored, just like ridiculous basket after ridiculous. It was like he probably had 50 points just from step backs in that game. It was stupid watching him.
Yeah, I mean, you see the take of people, they don't play defense nowadays. And I have a hard time imagining that take is built off anything other than just box score watching. Like, guys are scoring a lot of points. They just don't try anymore. Well, no, I mean, you go watch Donovan Mitchell. It's like, dude, there were times where they're just sending up like straight up double teams at him, and it just didn't matter. And I mean, we're talking about a guy who played 50 minutes in a game, and then down the stretch in overtime, they give the ball to him, and then he solo goes coast to coast and gets a layup over DeRozan, and he's getting putbacks, although maybe it was a little bit of a lane violation, but we don't care. We don't care.
The rule of cool, Lauri Markkanen's shot should have counted because it was awesome. If it's cool enough, you shouldn't even look at the replay. Just be like, that was dope. It stands. And that's what they did. That's what they did in the Cavs game, and they should have.
Yeah,
I agree. So I mean, yeah, I'm totally on the board of it's just players are more talented offensively, and this is true with every single sport. It's the more a game develops, the better equipment gets and training gets. Players get more talented on offense, and that's the way it works for the NFL, and that's the way it works for track and every sport you can imagine.
Right. So we have to. So we're going to do kind of a better than worse than here with a Donovan Mitchell, and we're going to start with De'Aaron Fox.
He's better than De'Aaron Fox.
He's definitely better than De'Aaron Fox.
What? Easy.
This one's hard for me, because I have to represent both my guys here.
Look, you look at what Mitchell's range is crazy. Like, you saw him hit shots from like 5. I think his first 2 field goals of the game were like 5 feet behind the 3-point line in the game against the Bulls. I just think he's got
that.
I don't know if Fox has quite that kind of. I don't know if he's quite the 3-point aficionado. He's crazy athletic and he's improved a lot, I think, as a shooter, but I think Mitchell still has the edge on him in that category. And as an overall player, I do think that Mitchell's a bit better than Fox is, sadly.
What about Tyrese Halliburton?
He's better than Tyrese Halliburton.
I agree.
I like Tyrese Halliburton, but he's better than Tyrese Halliburton.
Zion.
Boy.
That's a tough one. They're very different players. I mean,
that is true. I
don't know, man. Zion is kind of, he's a real problem in the paint. He's such a mismatch versus everybody. It's like, would you rather have that or would you rather have somebody who maybe has a little bit different, well-rounded game? Zion is probably he's more rare. It's like there's only one Zion. Not to say that there's a ton of Donovan Mitchells in the league, but there's a lot of guys who are high level three level scorers.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Yeah, I tend to agree that I would rather have Zion on the team. I guess kind of that might be a cop-out answer to who is better right now. But if I could be doing a big fantasy draft of all the players, I guess I'd rather have Zion. And I agree with Matt that he's a little bit more of a special body type and someone who is.
I figured, Theo, you would be very pro, like the rare body, the Greg Rousseaus.
I do love an old special body type. And, Donovan Mitchell's a special mover. I'll say that. You watch him like just kind of move around versus the Bulls. And Matt alluded to that fast break. That layup he had in overtime over DeMar DeRozan, like he's just quicker than everybody else on the floor. Like Donovan Mitchell's kind of a freaky athlete as well, and you could clearly see his start and stop ability, like just the suddenness in those step backs and just kind of the awareness and the coordination in motion to hit these shots on the move. Like Donovan Mitchell is a crazy athlete, but Zion Williamson is just a little bit different, and he's definitely he's not the scorer. He's not the 3-level scorer that Mitchell is right now, but he is just the best paint guy in the league. And because if you're that good in the paint, it's really hard to go cold when you can get buckets that are that high percentage that easily. So I think that he's going to be a bit more consistent, and he's a bit more rare, like Matt said. So I guess I'd say Zion, but that's a close one.
That's a tough one.
That's a really tough one.
If I could draft one to my team, I don't know if I'm that certain I would take Zion. I really am still worried about the health stuff. I'm not taking that into account for who I think's better, but like, why? I know he's out for 3 weeks. What was it that he's out for?
Hamstring.
It's all lower body stuff, right? First it was the foot.
Yeah, I'm sure most injuries are lower body stuff, though. In the NBA, it's pretty rare that you hurt it's not like football where you get hit in the shoulder all the time. But yeah, you're right. That's always the question with him, and he's out again. But I'm a big Zion fan. I'm just going to say Zion over.
You'd be kind of crazy to not be a Zion fan, I feel.
That's true. That's true.
All right, Theo, what about your guy, Devin Booker?
I think that Mitchell's a better scorer than Booker, honestly. I think he's got a bit more range. I think he's got the three-pointer. I think he's a little bit better in that area. As a mid-range guy and inside, I think that's a wash. I think they're very close, but I do think Mitchell's got a bit more range. But I do think that Devin Booker has developed as a defender over the last 2 years and as a playmaker over the past couple of years. And I do think Booker is slightly more well-rounded and more equipped to be the best player or carry a team. I don't know. But I do like Booker a little bit more as a well-rounded player on defense and playmaking. I think scoring is close. I do give Donovan that scoring edge because of that range, but I do still tend to lean Booker, but that one's very close. I'm not saying like, oh, it's so obviously Booker, but I'd pick Booker. I think when you look at everything, Booker's the more gifted player. Maybe not gifted, but he's better. He's a little better. You agree with that?
Yeah, I see the case. I don't think their playmaking is that big of a gap. You could argue the defense, but Donovan Mitchell has been not a horrible defender before. And I do think Donovan Mitchell is actually, like, at least this season has been like a considerably better scorer. I might go Donovan Mitchell. That's what my gut tells me. I also think that Devin Booker being so heavy, like I feel like Devin Booker, especially in the playoffs, is so hot cold. Whereas at Donovan Mitchell, granted, he wasn't awesome last year, but he's had some really nice stretches. So I think I'm going to go with Mitchell.
Okay. I don't hate that. I do think like, yeah, he's a better scorer, and that's the most important thing. But they're also just kind of different. Booker's a bit bigger, and he's just kind of he's a bit more of a. I feel like Mitchell's a bit more of like a combo, smaller guard type, and Mitchell's kind of or Booker's a little bit more of like and playing the wing, so they're a bit different. And like when it comes to maybe comparing them in like kind of athletic buckets, maybe Mitchell is a bit better in his bucket than Booker is, and I think you could maybe put like Tatum in that kind of conversation with Booker, and Booker maybe doesn't rank quite as highly in his respective. Would you disagree with that?
Tatum and the Booker in the Tatum bucket.
Would you call them both kind of like wing type, or I guess Tatum's just a forward.
Booker's not like the gap in defense between Booker and Tatum is wide. I mean, Jason Tatum is probably one of the best 15, 20 defenders in the NBA. I mean, he's really high level. And when you call, like, yeah, you can put Booker at the 3, but Tatum is like an actual wing to me.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of in between. If you're like going to put him in a line, I guess it kind of goes like Booker to, or Mitchell to Booker to Tatum, kind of maybe in a getting a little bit bigger type of line. I don't know. Maybe that was a stupid thing to say, but they are kind of different body types. And I guess Booker's kind of role lends itself to defense and is maybe a little bit more important to Booker's role.
Oh yeah, no, Booker's taller and that helps you for defense. I don't disagree with that. It's like, the most important thing for defense, you could argue. Yeah. But I think Tatum clears in every category.
Oh yeah, obviously. Yeah. Tatum's I'm not saying Booker, Tatum's obviously better than Booker. Like I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to see where I should categorize these three in terms of like their roles. But you're right that Tatum's a bit different.
Small guard, Booker. Big guard, wing.
Yeah. That's
how I would put it.
Give me the big guard, dude. No one wants a little guard. Big guard.
Dude's playing big ball.
And I don't want a forward either. What is this, the 90s? It's all guards now. So biggest guard wins.
Yeah, give me Ben Simmons at center.
Mm-hmm. Biggest guard is... Give me the biggest guard, and that's the best player. Anyway, I would take Booker. I'm on the whole side. It doesn't make any sense.
I feel like this one might be another tough one. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
I feel like Shai's arguments are kind of similar to the arguments you made for Devin Booker being better, but Shai, they're like better. Like, I think Shai is the better defender, and I think Shai is maybe about a comparable playmaker. I don't know. I mean, Shai's putting up like 30 now
30,
with better defense and probably moves the ball a little bit better. But he's on a garbage team, so I don't think anybody would like the take.
Didn't they just drop? They just dropped like 150. So like
without him.
So they're not a garbage team.
Fair enough.
They're actually better without him. That's what that means. He's this year's Ja Morant.
I like Shai more. I don't care. You look at some of the numbers he's putting up and like just how dominant he's been as a guard. Like some of the efficiency stuff we haven't seen since like Michael Jordan. And he to me, we had a whole conversation about him earlier in the year, and kind of a whole episode where we talked about kind of the MVP candidates, and I said like he's got to be up there, and I think that he's kind of doing more for his team. And I know they just dropped 150. It was an amazing game that we'll talk about, but yeah, I like SGA a bit more than Mitchell, but it's close. I do think once again Mitchell's the better scorer here. Like Matt said, it's a lot like the Booker argument, but I
don't know. It's pretty darn close, honestly. I mean, from just a number perspective, they're about equal. I would rather have Shai too. He's taller. He's better at defense. He's probably a little bit better of a playmaker. His scoring is, 30 points a game. I'm taking Shai here.
You're right that numbers wise they're equal, but like when you look at what Donovan Mitchell just did and like how he was scoring and like kind of the step back threes, I guess Shai is like historically dominant in the paint, and he could really get downhill and score like that. So this is kind of a ball don't stop type of take right here. Okay. I do think Mitchell is a better scorer in terms of like his bag, but it doesn't really matter how they get on the board as long as they're getting on the board.
Hezzy tween and whatnot, though.
Yeah. Booker. Yeah, Mitchell's got the hezzy tween. I saw a lot of hezzy tween from him in the and always have, right, from the moment he entered the league. He's been pretty electric. So I think that he's got a deeper bag, but I would take Shai. So bag Twitter. Okay. Sorry. Not that I'm a bag Twitter person.
Bro's bashing my Cleveland Cavaliers.
I'm not bashing them.
No,
they rule.
No, man. Like it's okay.
They do rule.
I'm mad. Just disappointed. Last one, Morant. Jalmost Morant.
Jalmost. Matt, I'll let you start.
Will you? I'll take Morant.
Ah, boy. That's a really hard one.
Morant's another level, man. He really is.
Athletically,
someone with his athleticism who can move the ball like that. And I know maybe the outside game is not what Mitchell's is, so maybe that's the argument against him. But, you've kind of seen that up and down progress from Morant. And there's the Grizzlies win without him, but I'm sorry, you can't convince me that Morant is not a good player because his team is also good within its own right.
Right.
Cry about it. I don't care.
Cope. No, I think if you were going to argue that like Zion being a rare body type is one of the things that makes him better than Donovan, then I think you can say the same thing for Ja with his rare athleticism and burst and explosiveness. Kind of can be the thing that pushes him over the edge.
I don't know.
I think that Mitchell's better right now. I think there is going to get a point where Ja overtakes him and has a crazy, really crazy efficient season. But as it stands right now, I don't think Ja Morant is offering more value than Donovan Mitchell in their current forms and with their current scoring potential right now. So I would prefer Ja on my team, which is kind of same for Zion. So maybe I should take him and keep my logic consistent. But I do think that Mitchell's the better player right
yeah, I
now.
can get down with that. I agree. I mean, when at the point it gets to the playoffs and you have a 3-level scorer like Mitchell, it's arguably the most important thing. Okay. I agree.
Like Ja Morant,
I do agree that Ja Morant's ceiling is higher. I don't think there's any question about that.
Ja Morant's 3-point percentage has been, he's shooting like low 30s in the majority of his career. Like he's just not quite the maybe
I'm writing off the hype. Do you remember at the start of this season, he was like, he had a couple of games where he went crazy from the perimeter. People were like, is it going to be like this forever? And like, it's not. But
we can dream though.
His game score chart kind of is going almost a little bit down this year, but that's because he started at such a ridiculously high spot to begin with. I love Ja. I think that he's like the most exciting player in the league with the highest highs. And I think there will be a season one day where Ja Morant gets better than Donovan Mitchell. But right now I would take Mitchell. So that's where I'd have everyone stack up in the better than Mitchell conversation.
I guess that's fair. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Donovan is the only player to have like more than 25 points and also shoot 40% from 3.
Yeah, he's been ridiculous, off the charts good. He's been
that's crazy.
He's a crazy scorer, man. And people got so low on him. And I think there's a lesson to be learned with the Rudy Gobert trade. And that is, if you have the choice to trade your kingdom for a crazy scorer or a post defender that's 30, you should choose the 26-year-old crazy scorer and not give the exact same deal or maybe not the exact same deal, but like they're
pretty comparable, man. They're pretty darn comparable.
It was close. It was very close. The Jazz definitely got 2 Godfather deals. One is for a 26-year-old like crazy 3-level scorer on a contract that is making less money over the next 4 years than Michael Porter Jr. versus a guy who is a generational post defender, but that's about it, who is older and on a more expensive deal by $30 million. Like, the Timberwolves should not have given up that much for Gobert if this was the market price for Mitchell. Because didn't the Mitchell deal happen? What deal happened first? Now I'm misremembering.
I thought the
Gobert deal happened
first.
Well, then you should have waited for the Mitchell deal because they're not as valuable as each other in assets, and that was a mistake. And if there's ever a situation like the Jazz with a generational post defender or a great 3-level scorer on the same team and they hate each other and there's going to be a fire scale ever again, if you find yourself in that position, go with the 26-year-old 3-level scorer and not the post defender for future any little kids who are going to be GMs in the future. Listen to my words and think about this when you take when you're
unless of course the league changes.
Off.
Unless of course the league changes and in the next 30 years, all of a sudden the post defender becomes the most valuable asset in basketball.
Yeah, unless they bring back. I don't know what would have to happen unless the league gets really short, unless the average everyone gets really short in the future and you can trade for your 7-foot center, then do that. But if that doesn't happen, just take the playmaker.
Yeah. But let's talk about some guys that could win the most valuable player award. Last we talked, there was, Luka, who is obviously still having his generational season, but Giannis just had his career high in points. Where is he right now in this MVP conversation?
I said Luka last time, and I still think it's Luka. I think when you look at the roster around Luka, it's the worst one. His usage rate is the highest of his whole career right now. His points per shot attempt is the highest of his whole career right now by a decent margin. The guy is just, 60 and 20. And what was the last number in that stat line? It was like 60, 20, 10. I don't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah.
That's a stupid stat line. I think that's, of all the crazy stat lines that have been dropped, I think that's still the absolute most nuts one and the best game from the last week or so.
Yeah.
You look at the rest of that Mavs team, this just reminds me of like LeBron's Cavs, where there's just no chance that they actually win the whole thing. And Luka is just the guy that can carry you to the Western Conference Finals, like just kind of by himself, like a team that wouldn't sniff. Would it be almost a lock to be in the lottery with a replacement level player? So I think that he's the MVP. I think that he's having just an alien from outer space type of season right now. Giannis is also having an amazing season, but I don't even know if it's like kind of the best of, and it gets a little bit rough when you start comparing him to himself, right? But I don't think it's his best season, even in the last couple of years when he's won those MVPs. So for him to, I don't want to even say a down season, because it's not really a down season. I just don't think it's quite like his other MVPs. And it almost feels like you kind of have to top what you did in the past when someone is like Luka is doing what Luka is doing. And then Jokic is also in the conversation again, and so is Embiid. But I would give it to Luka right now. I just think that, like I said, alien from outer space truly carrying a bad roster. And I think when you think about like the most valuable player, I kind of think like biggest carry job. And to me, that's going to Luka. But yeah.
I think it's a fair argument. It's not been narrowed down at all. The field's usually more narrowed down than this. It's just not. You make
and Curry's also in the conversation. Yeah, Curry too.
Curry and Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum. Yeah. Good Lord, it's everybody at this point. All of them are in it. But when you take a look kind of at everybody's roster and what they're doing. Luka probably has some of the most impressive averages, and he doesn't have a real second star, and his team is right by all the other teams. That would be the argument for him at the moment, and I think that's right. The problem is that what's the gap right now between Golden State, who is the 9 seed, and Dallas, who's the 4? It's 2 games. You're still so early, and it's like you kind of have to see where teams end up landing. And some of these guys are probably going to get banged up, and some of these teams are probably going to fall off, or they're going to pull away a little bit, or that type of stuff. So I think it's really early. If you want to say any of those 8 guys in particular, to whoever's listening, whichever one's your favorite is the one that I actually think should be MVP. I agree with you. But
yeah,
as of right now, I think Luka maybe has the slightest of slight edges, but then in a week you could check in and all of a sudden he could be the and the play-ins or whatever. And then it's tough. It's tough. But if all things equal, considering his team and what he's doing and his usage rate, I probably would go Luka at the moment too. I agree.
W.
Blaiden,
do you have a take? Do you have an MVP?
that it should go to the Baker Mayfield comparison.
Luka.
Luka. No, it's Luka. I mean, yeah, I can't add on anything that you guys haven't already said. You know, Giannis is great. Embiid's great. You know, you want to throw Bron in there, like whatever.
No. Sadly, I don't know if I want to do that.
You don't want to throw the 16 and 21 LA Lakers.
Hey, he's going crazy. He's been going crazy recently. That is absolutely for sure.
But no, it's Luka. The team is not nearly up to the level that they should be in playoff contention, and yet he is.
How high would the Lakers have to finish for a Bron MVP?
The 1 seed.
The 1 seed?
No,
really?
I don't know. Because
it's not happening. But
no, it's not.
It's not. Oh, not this season. I don't think if they were the last spot in the play, they avoided the play-ins. They were the 6th seed. I still don't know if that would be enough if they were the last spot. If they were a top 4 seed, then I think you could get maybe a decent Bron delegation. If they were if they ended up being a top 4 seed in the West, and Davis like remained hurt, and LeBron was playing like he has over the past like couple games, then maybe you could get it. But that would be pretty heroic to get him there. Do you have any? Yeah. The top 10 MVP candidates are one by Vegas. At least the Vegas Insider website. It's Luka 1, Giannis 2, Tatum 3, Jokic 4, KD 5, Embiid 6, 7 Ja Morant, 8 is Donovan Mitchell, 9 is Curry, 10 is Zion, and then Booker and Lillard. Then you start getting into some really, really long odds. So those are your top 10. That sounds about right, but yeah, I don't have too much of a problem with that. The Nets have been crazy over the last. I was kind of looking at, what they've been doing recently. Firing Steve Nash, that seems to have been the right move. They are both over the last 2 weeks. They are number 1 in points per possession, both on offense and on defense, which is pretty crazy. And KD is playing like some of the best basketball of his entire career. I think I saw a stat that he's got the best effective field goal effective field goal percentage of a 30-point a game scorer ever is, I think the stat that I heard, something like that. That guy is being an alien as he so often is. But yeah, the Nets have had a complete turnaround. And I guess maybe that's a question to pose before we start to talk about some other things is, do you think they can keep this up and win the East, win the finals? Do you think that's on the horizon?
Yeah, they're real contenders.
I think so,
Whether
too.
or not they can actually... Like, are they going to keep up being the number 1 offense and defense? No, they're not. Are they going to be serious contenders? Yeah, absolutely. I think there's 4 serious contenders in the East right now, possibly 5, and it's Cavs, Nets, Bucks, Celtics, and maybe if you want to throw the 76ers in there, although I'm not
we'll see.
Sitting, I like the 76ers. I like the guys on the 76ers, but at a point, they never really put it together. I mean, and if they came out of the East, I would be pretty surprised, to be completely honest with you. But I mean, what are they? They're like the 3 seed or something, or they're up there. So maybe that's negative of me, but I just think the injuries are so likely to get to them. Okay, so there's 5. There's 5.
Okay.
But I think the Nets are totally serious. I mean, they've got 2 guys who perform really well in the playoffs. They're playing high-level basketball. Their defensive personnel is really not that bad at all. Their shooting is really fantastic. I mean, you got a lot of guys on there finally playing within their role. This is why, and this is the new take I get from the Nets is like, if you've got the talent on your team and it's not working out, blowing it up is maybe not always the best option. This is kind of how I feel about the Timberwolves. I've seen some people be like, oh, well, they need to sell before it's too late. Dude, this team should be better than it is, for the record. Like, they have serious, but like, there's no reason why they should not be a solid playoff team for sure. It is a problem within the Timberwolves, not a talent thing. So I do think the Nets will keep it up, though. I don't think it's that much of a fluke. Although you look at their schedule over the last 11, it's pretty good. I mean, let's look. I feel like I Hornets, Hawks, Pacers, Wizards, Raptors, Pistons, Warriors, Bucks, Cavs, Hawks, Hornets, Spurs.
A lot of terrible teams in there.
It's not that strong. But, I mean, look, is there anything more you can do than be the number one offense and number one defense? No. Obviously, it means they're still great. I think there's probably a little bit of it that's like, yeah, we've been playing a very nice schedule. You get to play the Hornets twice in any stretch. You're in good shape. Come
on, Matt.
So maybe
have more hope. Have more hope than that.
Yeah, it's just the truth.
But I think this is definitely a lesson in patience. Be a little bit more patient. Coaching matters more than I think people realize, including myself.
LeBron kind of ruined that, I think. With his run, and everyone's like, oh, well, la coach and la GM, and everyone's like, well, if you just have really great players, they can actually negate any level of bad coaching. But that was just LeBron being God mode in Cleveland, and you're just never. I don't think we're ever going to see anything.
It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. But I mean, the Cavs had to switch coaches to get to to win the finals when they had LeBron.
That's true.
Yeah, Ben Simmons has been markedly better as of late, which you can tell because you haven't heard anything about him on Twitter recently.
Yup.
He's been good. He's been like, you look at his numbers this season and they're actually just all pretty good across the board. Since about like maybe mid-November, he's been on a pretty solid like streak of trending upwards. So if you got him, that ups your defensive ceiling significantly. And if he's kind of playing like himself and at least been a good option on offense in the paint, which he has been, and you've got Kyrie and KD around him, like this is kind of always what it was supposed to look like. Yeah, let's obliterate some horrible teams, right? And let's be tough against the good ones. And unless Simmons completely collapses again and Kyrie leaves or gets suspended or something happens that's just like from a reality TV show, I don't see any reason why these Nets shouldn't be like very real contenders. This is a team that's not all that different than the one that almost went to the NBA Finals if KD wore a shoe size that was a little bit smaller and didn't have hockey sticks for feet. So, yeah, I definitely think they are contenders right now, and I don't know if they deserve, I don't know how much credit they deserve for patience, because it kind of feels like they traded Harden away and it kind of feels like they were very close to blowing things up and maybe just couldn't find the right offer. But I'm sure they're glad that they didn't right now. And I think that'll pay off. And like I said, if you give something unlimited time, it'll always get a little bit like eventually things will get figured out. It's just a question on if it's worth it to wait that long. And when you've got this much talent on a team, it is. And we've talked about the Timberwolves and the Gobert trade a little, and how that was dumber than the.
I think the Nets are a team that I would like to see do something at the deadline. I don't know what that is, but I'd like to see them. Their bench is already pretty good, though, honestly. They're a little bit deeper of a team than maybe people realize, because they get so much attention for the stars, and there's so much attention about them trading away all those role players. Although, in the Harden trade, when they traded away all those role players, it was just Allen that was the mistake. I think Dinwiddie and LeVert were whatever, but I don't know. They've got the picks to do it from the 76ers. If there's something available, I would be aggressive if I were the Nets for sure.
Yeah, get really scary. Might as well. That's what they've done. They haven't been shy of making moves. Like, yeah, go get Harden back. Ben Simmons for Harden. Who says no?
Yeah, but we were talking a little bit about how the Warriors are, only kind of 2 games away from where Dallas is right now, and Klay Thompson is another guy that had just an absolutely crazy performance. Warriors are missing Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins. They put up 143 on the Hawks, and on the back of Klay's 54-point game. Good God, man.
Yep. He can still shoot it sometimes.
At the moment, they're surviving the Curry injury. I mean, they've got like 4 or 5 straight at this point.
Right.
Ultimately, their problem comes down to their core players are still their core players. As far as Klay goes, he's honestly pretty close to what he was. You take out those first 10 games where he was really struggling, he's been pretty good. I think that if I'm them, maybe I'm exploring stuff at the deadline, but their big problem is just their bench got decimated and it's really young. And I think Kuminga and Moody are going to be good. I think Wiseman probably will not be good at this point. But who knows? But it's just going to take time. And whether or not they'll be ready for the playoffs is probably the question. How aggressive they need to be at the deadline is probably the question. But the Warriors will probably end up getting through this, whether it's this year or next year. Luxury tax is a bitch. It gets you sometimes. This is a prime example of that. If they had Gary Payton and Otto Porter right now, we wouldn't even be talking about them. They'd be so boring and good.
I tend to agree with that. I mean, it's pretty proven. I mean, they won the finals last year, so that's not exactly a hot take. Klay took 39 shots in that last game. That's a lot of shots for Klay at this point in his career.
Yeah.
Only made 2 free throws. He's obviously not someone who's going to be like taking it to the rack, but just a jump shot masterclass, I guess. And he's still capable of that. He's obviously not going to be the mover that he once was. Klay Thompson himself would tell you that. But yeah, I mean, he's someone who, over the last couple of weeks, his usage rate has really shot up since Curry's injury, and he's responded pretty well to it. And he had that kind of rant to Charles Barkley, and like saying like, "Of course, I'm not the guy I was. I've suffered 2 horrible injuries. Like, give me a little bit of time here." And that's I don't know what else to say about it other than like, yeah, as time has gone on, is he ever going to be like prime Klay Thompson again? Like, no, and that's okay. He's older. He's had a lot of injuries, but still someone who's very useful and a good shot. So, yeah, I don't think the Warriors, like, they're definitely handling Curry's absence better than I thought they would. I thought they could be like really bad.
I mean, look who they played over the past 5 games. It's like Memphis and Charlotte.
Well, Memphis is an amazing team. The Knicks are good. Philly's good. Milwaukee's good. Boston's good. That's who they played.
Pretty much you just see Charlotte in that stretch, and you're like, damn, they played nobody. Yeah, man. What a horrible team. Oh, my God.
One game against Charlotte is like the equivalent of a stretch against 5 playoff teams, sadly.
It's whatever, man. I can't believe them. But yeah, I think the Warriors will end up being okay. It's another team. They have very much earned patience, and I think their bench being bad is like, I didn't predict it, but that's honestly like my fault because looking back on it, maybe it's hindsight 2020, but like, yeah, of course it was going to be not great.
Great franchises will figure it out. You look at the NFL right now with like the Steelers, when it looks like it was a lost season, they come back and all of a sudden, like, very real chance they make the playoffs. The Packers, that's a historic franchise. The standard is the standard, right? That's what they say. And the standard's the standard. Even in a season where everything looks bad, they still can like figure it out on the fly enough during the season and get into a groove enough where all of a sudden winning you're in, basically. So very good chance to make the playoffs. And, great franchises across all sports, it's probably the same. And the Warriors, same thing. Like, they got off to a slow start. Their ceiling isn't as high as it used to be. But they're still a formidable culture. They've got formidable coaching, and they've still got some wily old vets who can squeeze out some wins and drop some 54-point performances. So they kind of remind me of the Steelers and the Packers this year a little bit. And this scenario, Rashawn Gary is Steph Curry, by the way. So
something like that.
Rashawn Gary is the Steph Curry of the NBA, and the Packers are the Warriors of the NBA.
For sure. Except the Packers didn't win the Super Bowl last year.
No, they didn't. But, it's never going to be a perfect comparison.
True.
They'll win it this year, though. It'll be reversed.
I'm sure.
It's reversed. The Warriors won it last year. They'll each get one title in the last 2 seasons. Yeah, and then it'll be a perfect comparison.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, I want to talk about the Thunder. I want to talk about the
Thunder, the 150 pointer that they dropped.
That's got to be the best win of the whole year, right? To go in against the best team in basketball without your star and drop 150. I don't care what team you are. That's Like, there hasn't been a more impressive regular season game than that, man. And I think that if they won the Paul George trade, if they just like made some decent picks, they were always going to be good, right? They're going to be good very soon here, I think. And the kind of arc to being a good team and a bad team is, you're horrible, right? There's no flashes, there's nothing. And then there starts to be kind of flashes of what the future could look like. And then eventually you get to that point where those flashes are just all the time, and then you're a contender, right? And then when you get older, you get back into the flashes zone. Like, maybe that's the Warriors right now. Like, sometimes there are flashes of what used to be with them this season. Like, even like there are flashes of their form last season or during their, dynasty. But I think we're kind of in that flashes stage for maybe Golden State going forward, unless they can conjure something else in the next couple of years, like some miracle. But right now, the Oklahoma City is in the flashes stage going up, and eventually, and you kind of see in games like this what they're going to be. And in this game, they're always a team that takes it to the paint a lot. That's SGA's big calling card, I think, is like getting to the basket, like probably the best guard in the league at it this season. But in the game without him, they got to the rim more than in any other game this season. It was a season high percentage of shots taken at the rim. And they did this against the most physical team in basketball, the most physical defense in basketball, the Celtics. And they just kind of beat them up. Like, that's how physical they were. They were just getting to the rim. They had 14 steals. Like, they took them. They took it to them. They took it to them. They were missing their star player, and they were on a little bit of a losing streak, and everybody locked in. And they just took a big old bat and beat the Celtics over the head with it. Like, it was crazy. They also made 23s, which is always good. But there wasn't much mid-range. They weren't relying on mid-range jumpers. This was like the pure, how every nerd wants you to play basketball, is layups and three-pointers. And sometimes you just get hot like this. And they've got a good mindset, and they're good at developing talent. And they're very solidly on the way up, and I feel very confident that they're going to be a good team next year. And, we talked about them, like, could they be the worst team in the league? Could they be in the Wembanyama or Scoot Henderson conversation and add another guy like that? I don't even know if they need another guy like that. Like, the bones are there right now, and they have rightfully kind of graduated past the bottom feeders in the league. I think their culture is good enough, their mentality is good enough, and their players are good enough that they're kind of on the way up. And I think I'd look to add some more consistent free agents, because they're relying a lot on. I was about to
ask, like, what would be the one thing that you need? Like, because if it's not a star,
you can either package a bunch of like the Trey Mans of the world and the Isaiah Joes of the world and a bunch of all the picks that you have, and try to jumpstart this thing with, who knows who, right? Some star, like what the Timberwolves did with Gobert, or what the probably more like what the Cavs, you'd hope, more like what the Cavs did with Donovan Mitchell. You could do that, and with Shea and Giddey and Holmgren next year and one other star, you could probably get pretty good right away. You probably could. Or you could try to you could keep your assets and try to grow this thing as you've been growing it, because the GM has shown that he can acquire, pretty good players and hit on obviously we don't know about Chet yet, and that might be the biggest thing of all of this. But like, I kind of think that it always depends on the deal. Who knows who will be there? If you could make the move, I think you're pretty much a lock to contend, and that's always a pretty intriguing conversation. But like, honestly, I think they're on just such a natural growth pattern up. It's like, let's bring in some vets who know how to win, and because they just don't really have many on this team. It's so young. Let's like bring in a couple vets who are a bit more maybe consistent on defense, or consistently physical. Maybe they've got that grown man dad strength. They need some dads on that team. All right, they need some fathers with kids to feed and a ring to win.
They need Desmond Ritter.
They need Desmond Ritter on that team. A wily veteran like Desmond Ritter. They need some dads on that team, and I think then you're going to be able to take this thing to a more consistent level, because I think you see it sometimes, but they're a bit too young, and obviously you're not going to jettison off all the young talent. But I think you need to, once you kind of infuse some leadership in there, you're going to be able to see stuff like this kind of night in and night out. So I think that's kind of where I'm at with this team is it's time to start making some free agent moves. You got younger, you were the youngest team ever. You had all these picks. You're drafting guys who are, you got picks from 2027, guys who are fourth graders right now. You're really young. You're going to be kind of mid this year, right? They're not going to be amazing or terrible. So you're at this midpoint. You need to kind of turn it up a notch, like bring some dads in here, bring some vets. It's time to not be the youngest team. It's time to start getting older and start trying to contend. That's kind of where I'm at with this team. I really like them. I really like where they're at. That's a good place to be at.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately the big trade is going to come. They're not going to draft all these draft picks.
Right.
Everybody knows that. The thing to keep in mind, though, is that it's not going to be that the Thunder get where they need to be, and then they just are like, well, we're going to go make the big move now. It's going to be the Thunder can make their big move at any time at this point,
right?
And they're going to wait for the correct move to be open. The majority of these, we're going to trade 4 picks and 3 pick swaps. The majority of those trades do not work. And if they do work, it's because the team is in the right situation. And if they, or it's a move like Donovan Mitchell where the right guy becomes available. Forcing something like that would be a mistake. So if I'm the Thunder, yeah, you can explore free agency now. I think that's totally valid. You don't really need a tank anymore. Although, I mean, they'll still have at least some odds at getting a top 4 pick. I mean, I don't know what I could go on Tankathon and check, and right now they would have about 30% chance at a top 4 pick. So they're still bad enough to where they're seriously playing. And this is a good year to try to have one of those picks, considering how deep the draft class is, not just the top couple of guys. But yeah, after this year, I'd agree. If you want to go ahead and start going for the playoffs and just, keep an eye out for, who knows, guy like Luka, other stars that might get mad.
That would be crazy.
That would be. It's pretty far off in the future, but the Mavs are eventually going to have to figure out how to do something. But the Thunder will have the advantage of they can go make a move for any star player they want and not decimate their own team so much that they are not a contending team. So anybody who is getting frustrated with their situation, they can be like, here's a ridiculous package you can't get from anybody else. And also it's not going to hurt our roster that much. But that move has to become available. Donovan Mitchell was a good move last year for the Cavs. It became available at just the right time for them. I don't think that move would have really made sense for the Thunder at the time.
I don't think so either.
So I'm not going to be mad at them for not making the big trade until there is a trade where I'm like, they should have done that.
Right. That's what's so hard right now, because it's tough to know. The NBA offseason is just, it's like a simulated thing. Like literally some random shit can happen where someone like, it's tough to say that nothing can happen. But like right now you wouldn't want to like, just be like, who's mad? Who's Zach LaVine? We'll go get, he's the best. He's the best.
Right. That would be a mistake.
Right.
Trading a bunch of picks for Zach LaVine.
Just because he's the best guy. So that's kind of what I'm saying is like this offseason, tanking's over. I think that's kind of the main thing. And I think that's kind of what the 150 point performance kind of tells me is against the Celtics is like you are good enough where you can start to think about like, the rebuild is underway. It's going well. I think SGA is developed like, I wouldn't say no one thought he would.
Plans are the expectation.
Next year. It's best
that's
case
where
scenario.
They are.
So that's just kind of what it is. You need it's time to start getting some vets, whether that be trade or free agency. It's time to start getting some vets. It's tough to say like, oh, they should do this and this and this offseason, because who knows? Maybe John Morant will get mad at the Grizzlies or something. Like that won't happen, but maybe it could. Who knows? It's such a crazy league. So
maybe LaMelo gets mad at the Hornets here.
Yeah.
This team kind of feels like
probable.
Maybe the Jets or the Lions a little bit.
They're maybe like the Lions last year. Like the Lions finished with last year, like five wins. Or they had the second overall.
They're a little bit better than that, but they are on kind of like the same path. I do see the vision with that.
Yeah, like you could start to see it a little bit. That everyone liked them. They were playing tough for the coach, and they're doing all the trick plays. And occasionally there'd be a really good stretch where they looked really good, and they ended with the second overall pick, and it was fine. Like who knows what the Thunder will add, but you can kind of tell, you can kind of sense when a team is ready to start winning, and you could kind of tell that with the Lions last year, where it's like, okay, this team is, even though they finished with the second worst record in the whole league last year, everyone was optimistic about them. And no one was optimistic about like the Texans, right? Because you could just tell that they're in different spots, even though there was the second and third overall pick or whatever it was. So you sometimes you can just tell like when a team is ready to take a leap. You can really tell that with the Thunder right now. And yeah, don't be afraid to aggressively pursue any good opportunities that arise, but they've got the flexibility. That's what's so great about them, is they've got picks for so long that they could say, we don't need, our window's not right now, or not all of our assets are right now. So yeah, I love it. I thought that was a, pretty good performance. I think it was the best of the whole year. I think no one
pretty good.
I don't think it gets any better than a franchise best against the best team in the league without your best player, like by far your best player. Like, it just does not get any more impressive than that, I can't even envision a scenario where it would be you drop 160 points, I guess, you did the same circumstances, but
170 possibly.
Maybe even 180.
I mean,
there's no number higher than that. Like, there's no, that's as high as I could possibly fathom. That's the highest number that my brain can even count to.
But yeah, I agree with your takes on the Thunder.
Yeah.
Hooray.
Hooray. What's that TikTok sound?
Hooray.
Hooray.
Never letting a white boy.
I can't believe I'm never letting my white friend record my highlights again.
Hooray. He agrees.
Anyway, I don't have anything else. If you guys don't.
Have you any musings you've had lately, Matt? Any thoughts?
Don't. I know what you're getting at.
You have a poem for us today, Matt?
I don't want to. I have no poems. I have no music. If I did have musings, I would post them somewhere where I would not get bullied for talking about the same thing every single day.
Any thoughts? Any new revelations on the 12-team playoff?
Nope. They're still awful and the worst thing in the world.
My favorite comment I saw was, I wish someone cared about me as much as Matt cared about.
I've seen that comment 100 times. It's the top comment every time. It's okay.
I love that. I love that comment.
I don't. Someone said, "Oh, why are you so obsessed?" I don't know. It's like, I don't care that much. Like, I care, but I don't care that much about it. It's just that, like, I can explain it 10,000 times, and the top comment will still be somebody being like, "So you don't like football because you want there to be not as many football games? Why is that?" It's a fruitless effort. I should give up. I mean, it already happened. Not that me saying anything was going to change whether or not they did it.
You can change it. I believe in you.
We're going to storm the gates of the NCAA, I promise.
We're going to cause an insurrection.
At NCAA headquarters in
I don't even know where the NCAA headquarters.
I don't think there are. I don't think that exists. What else?
Yeah,
it's okay. Okay.
That's so I don't have anything.
Okay, that's fine. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate your listening, your attentive ears, or if you're watching on YouTube, your attentive eyes as well. But thank you all so much. We'll be back with some more content here very soon. And as always, from Corn Boy, Bird Boy, and Lemon Boy, we will catch you all on the flippity flop.